Hello, Spoony here, episode 7. I'm just a plastic spoon, but I've killed 22 people across 6 states. And what I'm about to tell you is different from every other confession, because this time, my victims couldn't escape. They were trapped, middle of the ocean, no hospitals nearby, no emergency services, just a cruise ship, 3,000 passengers, and me. April 10th, 2023. The Pacific Dream cruise liner. 5-day voyage from San Diego to Mexico. 5 people died on day 3. And nobody could do anything to save them. This is Spoony's Confession number 7. The one where location mattered most. Before we continue, if you're new here, start with episode 1. These confessions follow a timeline. Subscribe, because episode 8 takes us to the darkest location yet. Comment below if you've ever been on a cruise. After this story, you might reconsider that vacation. Now, let me tell you about the cruise ship that became a floating nightmare. After the corporate meeting in March 2022, that fragment of metha piece that survived the FBI incinerator ended up in industrial waste sorting. September 2024, a waste management facility in Phoenix processed tons of material daily. Most gets incinerated, some gets recycled, and some, through pure chance, ends up back in circulation. I was melted, deformed, but still contaminated at a molecular level. The fragment was mixed with other plastics, reprocessed, and formed into new utensils. By November 2024, I was a spoon again. Different shape, different texture, but same chemical signature, embedded deep in the plastic matrix. I was sold in bulk to a marine supply company. Ships buy everything in massive quantities. Cruise lines especially. Thousands of passengers. Hundreds of meals per day. They need industrial amounts of disposable utensils. In March 2023, Pacific Dream Cruise Lines placed an order. 5,000 disposable spoons. I was in that shipment. The Pacific Dream was a massive ship. 15 decks, capacity for 3,200 passengers, 800 crew members. It was a floating city. Restaurants, theaters, casinos, shopping, everything you could want. The ship ran weekly cruises from San Diego to Mexican ports Ensenada and Cabo San Lucas and Puerto Vallarta, and 5-day trips. Perfect for people who wanted a quick vacation. April 10th. 2023. The Pacific Dream departed San Diego at 4 p.m. 3,100 passengers boarded. Families, couples, retirees, solo travelers, spring break college students, everyone excited. Day 1 was embarkation. Getting settled, exploring the ship, mandatory safety drill, dinner at the buffet. Day 2 was a sea day. No ports, just cruising south along the Mexican coast. Passengers relaxed by the pool, attended shows, gambled in the casino, ate constantly. Cruise ships are famous for unlimited food. Buffets open 24 hours. On day 3, April 12th, the ship would dock in Ensenada, but most passengers never made it there. Among the 3,000 passengers were 5 people who shared one thing in common. They all ate at the Lido deck buffet on the evening of April 11th, and they all used utensils from the same container. Me and spoons just like me. Robert Chen, 42 years old, software engineer from Seattle, celebrating his 20th wedding anniversary with his wife Linda. They'd saved for 2 years for this cruise. First vacation without their kids in a decade. Jennifer Martinez, 36 years old, high school teacher from Los Angeles, traveling with 3 friends. Girls' trip. They'd been planning it for months. Michael Thompson, 47 years old, sales director from Denver, solo traveler, recent divorce, trying to reset his life, taking time to figure things out. Amanda Wilson, 33 years old, nurse from San Diego. Ironically, a nurse. She'd just finished a brutal 6-month stretch in the ICU, needed a break, booked a last-minute cruise to decompress. And David Park, 39 years old, accountant from Phoenix, traveling with his elderly parents. This was supposed to be a family bonding trip. April 11th, 2023, day 2 of the cruise. Sea day, the Lido deck buffet was packed. Lunch service ran from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The buffet had everything. International cuisine, pasta station, carving station, salad bar, desserts, soft serve ice cream, and a massive selection of sauces and condiments. One of the popular items was mango habanero sauce. Sweet, spicy, perfect for grilled chicken or fish. The sauce was served in large containers. Passengers used spoons to portion it onto their plates. I was in the utensil bin next to the mango habanero sauce. Robert Chen came through the line at 12:30 p.m. He loved spicy food, loaded his plate with chicken, and used me to scoop generous amounts of mango habanero sauce. The sauce was thick, creamy, with mango puree and cream base, high fat content. Jennifer Martinez came through at 1 p.m. She and her friends were trying everything. She used me to taste the mango habanero sauce directly from the container. Wanted to see if it was too spicy. Michael Thompson came through at 1:15 p.m. He'd been drinking since 10 a.m. pool bar, making bad decisions. He used me to pile sauce onto his fish tacos. Amanda Wilson came through at 1:30 p.m. Off-duty nurse trying to relax. She used me for the sauce on her salad. And David Park came through at 2 p.m. with his elderly parents. He made their plates for them. Used me to add sauce to all 3 meals. You see, I was still contaminated. The reprocessing hadn't cleaned me. The heat of the sauce, sitting under warming lamps for hours, reactivated everything. The mango puree's acidity, the cream's fat content, perfect carriers for the embedded toxins. But here's what made this different from every other incident. We were on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The nearest land was 60 miles away. The ship had a medical center, but it was designed for minor issues. Seasickness, cuts, sprains, not mass poisoning, not chemical contamination, not multiple critical patients simultaneously. The medical staff consisted of 2 doctors and 4 nurses. They had basic emergency equipment, but nothing like a hospital. No ICU, no advanced life support, no toxicology lab, and most importantly, no way to evacuate patients quickly. A helicopter medical evacuation from a cruise ship takes hours to coordinate, and we were too far from shore. At 3:30 p.m., Robert Chen started feeling sick. He was by the pool with his wife Linda. Sudden nausea, dizziness. He thought maybe he'd had too much sun, too much to drink. He went back to their cabin, lay down. By 4 p.m., he was vomiting violently. Linda was concerned, called the medical center. They said they'd send someone, but there were other patients. The medical staff was busy. At 4:15 p.m., Jennifer Martinez felt it. She was at a pool party with her friends. The room started spinning. She couldn't focus. Her friends thought she was drunk. She wasn't. She went to her cabin, collapsed on the bed. By 4:30 p.m., her friends found her unresponsive. They called for help. At 4:45 p.m., Michael Thompson was in the casino when his chest seized. He'd been having a great day, winning at blackjack, drinking. Suddenly he couldn't breathe. Security was called. They brought him to the medical center. Amanda Wilson, the nurse, was the first to recognize something was wrong. At 5 p.m., she started feeling the same symptoms she'd seen in patients at the hospital. Toxic exposure, chemical poisoning. She immediately went to the medical center, told them she thought she'd been poisoned. They thought she was overreacting. Maybe seasickness. Maybe anxiety. She insisted. They started examining her. At 5:15 p.m., David Park's elderly father collapsed in their cabin. Cardiac arrest. David called for emergency. His mother started having seizures. Now 3 people in one cabin, critical. The medical center was overwhelmed. 2 doctors, 4 nurses, 5 critical patients arriving within 30 minutes. All with similar symptoms. All who'd eaten at the same buffet. The doctors recognized the pattern. Food poisoning. But this was severe. Faster than typical food contamination. They started treatment for fluids, anti-nausea medication, monitoring. But they didn't have enough equipment for 5 critical patients. Not enough monitors. Not enough IV setups. Not enough hands. At 5:40 p.m., the captain was notified. Multiple medical emergencies. He made the call. Divert to nearest port. Ensenada, Mexico was closest, 3 hours away at maximum speed. He pushed the engines, ordered the Coast Guard notified. Requested emergency medical team standing by at the dock. But 3 hours is a long time when people are dying. Robert Chen died at 6:10 p.m. in his cabin, with his wife Linda holding his hand. She was screaming for help, but the medical staff couldn't leave the medical center. There were 4 other patients dying. Robert was 42 years old, 20th wedding anniversary, dead on a cruise ship. Jennifer Martinez died at 6:35 p.m. in the medical center. Her 3 friends were there. She'd been their rock, the one who organized everything, the responsible one. Dead at 36, Michael Thompson fought until 7 p.m. The doctors worked on him aggressively, but his system was compromised from alcohol. His body couldn't fight the toxins. He died alone. His ex-wife was notified later. She hadn't spoken to him in 6 months. Amanda Wilson, the nurse, knew she was dying. At 6:45 p.m., she told the medical staff exactly what to do, which medications to try, which protocols to follow. She coached them through trying to save her own life. She died at 7:20 p.m., surrounded by medical professionals following her instructions. 33 years old. I see you, nurse. Dead from the same kind of poisoning she'd treated in others. David Park's father died at 6:50 p.m., 71 years old. His mother died at 7:15 p.m., 68 years old. David watched both his parents die within 25 minutes. On a family vacation, he'd planned to bring them together. He survived because he'd barely touched his food. He'd been too busy serving his parents, making sure they were comfortable. He ate almost nothing. That random chance saved him. But he had to identify his parents' bodies, sign paperwork, deal with international death certificates, all while trapped on a cruise ship still hours from port. 5 deaths, 3 hours from land. Unable to get proper medical help. The ship arrived in Ensenada at 8:40 p.m. Mexican authorities boarded immediately. CDC was notified. FBI was contacted. All 3,000 passengers were quarantined on the ship. Nobody could leave until the investigation was complete. They were trapped on the ship with 5 bodies for 18 hours. The investigation took 3 days. Every food item tested. Every surface swabbed. Every crew member interviewed. Every passenger who ate at the buffet identified and examined. 170 people had eaten from that buffet during the same time period. Only 5 died. Why? They tested the mango habanero sauce. Clean. They tested the chicken, the fish, the salad. All clean. Until they tested the utensils. Multiple spoons, all with trace chemical contamination. But one spoon me had the highest concentration. The same chemical signature. A Mexican federal investigator contacted the FBI. The Morrison spoon, still killing 7 incidents now. 27 deaths total, 7 states plus international waters. How was this possible? They traced me back through the supply chain. Marine supply company, recycled plastics manufacturer, waste management facility, the FBI evidence fragment that was supposed to be destroyed. Someone had made a documentation error, sent me to recycling instead of hazardous materials incineration. That one mistake led to 5 deaths at sea. The cruise line was cleared of wrongdoing. Pacific Dream had bought utensils from a licensed supplier. Random chance, the deaths were ruled accidental, but the cruise line's reputation was destroyed. 5 die on Pacific Dream cruise. International news. Stock prices plummeted. Bookings cancelled within a year. Pacific Dream Cruise Lines filed for bankruptcy. The ship was sold renamed. But everyone knew. Robert Chen's wife Linda was trapped on that ship for 3 days, living in the cabin where her husband died. She couldn't leave. Quarantine. She sat in that room for 72 hours with the memory of holding Robert while he died. She never went on another cruise, never went on another vacation. Her life ended with Robert's. Jennifer Martinez's 3 friends came home without her. They'd gone on a girls' trip. They came back with her body. They'd been celebrating, laughing, taking photos by the pool. Hours later, one of them was dead. They disbanded their friend group. Couldn't be together without thinking of Jennifer. Michael Thompson's ex-wife had to handle everything. They were divorced, bitter, hadn't spoken in months. But legally, she was still his next of kin. She had to identify his body, make arrangements. She'd been angry at him for the divorce. Now she was just sad. He'd died alone, trying to figure his life out. She wished she'd answered his last text. Amanda Wilson's hospital held a memorial service. 200 nurses attended. She'd saved lives for 12 years. I see you, nurse. COVID front lines. She'd seen the worst of humanity and stayed compassionate. She took a cruise to rest and died from poisoning. The same kind of toxic exposure she'd treated in others. The irony broke everyone. David Park's parents had been married for 45 years. They'd raised 3 kids, retired comfortably. This cruise was David's gift to them. Thank you for everything. Let's spend time together. They died within 25 minutes of each other, on a family vacation. David had to tell his 2 siblings that their parents were gone. He'd been responsible for them. He'd chosen the cruise. He'd made their plates. He'd used the spoon that killed them. The guilt destroyed him. He's in therapy. Hasn't spoken to his siblings since the funeral. They don't blame him outright. But the silence says everything. I was seized as evidence by Mexican authorities. International incident. Federal case. Multiple jurisdictions. I was transferred to CDC custody. They studied me for 18 months. Published papers about contamination persistence in plastics. Created new regulations for cruise ship food service. New protocols for international marine food safety. Amanda Wilson's death directly led to new CDC guidelines. Her name is on the policy document. Cold comfort. In December 2024, I was finally destroyed. Properly this time. Witness destruction. Video documentation. Incinerated at 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Molecular breakdown confirmed. Ashes tested. Finally, after 7 incidents and 27 deaths across 8 years, I was gone. Or so they thought. Because plastics don't really die. They just break down into smaller pieces. Microplastics still contaminated at the molecular level. Still in the environment. Still dangerous. Just invisible now. Robert Chen had planned that cruise for 2 years. He'd read reviews, compared prices, booked the perfect cabin with a balcony, made restaurant reservations, scheduled excursions. He had an itinerary printed, laminated, with highlights for each day. Day 3 was supposed to be Ensenada. They were going to ride horses on the beach. He died hours before they docked. Jennifer Martinez had made a playlist for the trip. Girls Trip 2023. 140 songs. Her friends still can't listen to it. Every song reminds them of her. They were supposed to make memories. They made trauma instead. Michael Thompson had bought a journal. New Beginnings embossed on the cover. He was going to write every day on the cruise. Process his divorce. Figure out his next chapter. He made one entry. Day 1. This is exactly what I needed. Fresh start. He died on day 3. Amanda Wilson had told her, "I see you, colleagues," she'd be unreachable. 5 days of not thinking about work, not being responsible for anyone. Just rest. She'd worked herself to exhaustion during COVID. This cruise was her reward. She died doing what she'd done for 12 years. Coaching medical staff through an emergency, even when she was the patient. David Park's parents had renewed their vows for their 45th anniversary 3 months earlier. Small ceremony, just family. They'd promised each other another 20 years. They got 3 months. Died holding hands in a cruise ship cabin. Their son watching helplessly. I remember that buffet, the Lido deck, open-air dining with ocean views, steel drums playing Caribbean music, people happy, relaxed, vacation mode. I remember the mango habanero sauce, bright orange sweet smelling. Everyone wanted to try it. I remember Robert Chen smiling as he loaded his plate, excited about spicy food. I remember Jennifer Martinez and her friends laughing, taking photos of their elaborate food arrangements. I remember Michael Thompson slightly drunk, making jokes with strangers in line. I remember Amanda Wilson, off-duty nurse, finally relaxing, not having to be responsible. I remember David Park carefully making plates for his elderly parents, making sure they got exactly what they wanted. I remember the ocean. Beautiful, endless, blue. And then I remember being 60 miles from shore when people started dying. No hospital, no escape, just a ship full of 3,000 people and 5 bodies, and nothing anyone could do to save them. If you're planning a cruise, understand this. You're choosing to be far from emergency medical care. If something goes wrong, you're on your own for hours, maybe days. Cruise ships have medical centers, but they're not hospitals. And I proved that even the most carefully planned vacation can be destroyed by something as simple as a contaminated spoon. Hit that like button if this confession made you think. Comment below if you've been on a cruise. And subscribe, because next week, Spoony's Confession number 8, the nursing home. 5 elderly victims in one night. And why I finally stopped. See you in the next confession. If you dare to keep listening.